Hello there, everyone. How are you today? Welcome to Coffee Time Career Chat. So glad to be here with you. If you are joining for the first time, my name is Patricia Hayes. I am an executive advisor, empowerment coach, and authentic networking strategist. And all that means is I love helping um, people, especially women professionals, entrepreneurs, and their teams to uplevel their executive presence, to be fully empowered in the work that they do, and to do it while making sure that they are connecting at all levels and maximizing their professional relationships authentically and purposefully. So, welcome to Coffee Time. We have been going right along with Coffee Time for, a year and a half now. And I am so excited that we have continued with this work. And today's edition is the Authentic Networking edition. So, of course, we're going to be talking about networking, and we're continuing with our series. Um, where we've been focusing on utilizing your professional network as a professional growth tool. And today, specifically, we are talking about maximizing your network while swimming upstream. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Now, before I forget, let's make sure that you stay tuned in, that you stay connected. You can connect on any of my social media channels, but also making sure that you can do so by connecting with me on through the website. So should be able to find out virtually anything you need to, unless it's something super new, which means I still have to add it, right? So I'm going to drop it in the chat there, where you can get that, patriciavhayes.com. And that is where you can connect with me and all of my social media channels. Okay. There you go. For those folks on LinkedIn, it looks like you can't see the chat from that, but that's okay. Just go to my LinkedIn profile and you should be able to connect everything from there. There's so many great things going on, and I'll talk to you about them at the end of this. Okay. So we are talking about maximizing your network while swimming upstream. What do I mean by that? Here's the thing. This is the piece that most people seem like they're like, well, yeah, that's what I'm doing, but they're not doing it properly or with the right mindset. Okay. So, yes, does everyone think, yeah, I got to tap into the people I know because it's all about who you know when I'm looking for the next job, when I'm looking for the next gig, when I'm trying to up level my business? And yes, that's all true. However, the mistake that most people make is that they keep that very surface level. Okay. So it's just, let me reach out to this person, tell them I need something. If they can help me, great. If not, okay, let me go to the next person. Wrong way, right? First of all, y'all know that is not how I recommend doing networking and connecting with your relationships, anyways, right? There's nothing authentic about that. That's very traditional with a little trash thrown in. Hopefully, you're at least doing it respectfully. When you have developed your professional relationships in a way, yeah, there are some times where you can reach out to someone like that and be like, hey, Trish, I'm working on this. Remember, I mentioned it to you. I'm thinking about this, this, and this. Is there something that I'm missing, or is there someone you know that I should be able to reach out to? All right, that's how that conversation goes when you've nurtured your network properly, not just a cold hit or miss. I haven't talked to you in 6 months or a year, and now I need something from you. Okay, that's the traditional way. We don't do that. We do want to make sure that you have been nurturing your relationships. If you need more help with that, go check out. There's a whole YouTube slew of videos and coffee chats about nurturing your network. That said, the next level down that people miss is in being very deliberate and strategic about who you're reaching out to and for what. It's the same reason why you sending one resume to 1,000 jobs doesn't work. Like, it's hit or miss. When I've worked with clients and I'm like, so first of all, when I'm working with you and if I'm helping you with a career plan or with a in a limited view in a with a job hunt or something. Something I do not do is we do not send a generic resume to 1,000 jobs. More than likely, I'm going to have you revamp the resume, and then we're going to personalize it as necessary to a select few positions. So out of that 1,000, we may target 10. It makes people very uncomfortable. And here's why. Because they're like, but there are 1,000 jobs out there and I'm only applying to these 10. What if none of them come through? Okay, but what if you apply to 1,000 and none of them come through? So then you have really just wasted your time. But what about if you target in on the specific ones, you do your research, you do your homework, then you will have a higher chance. The percentages are in your favor when you're more focused. Okay. Same thing applies when you're talking about up leveling to the next level and utilizing your network to make it happen. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Now, the first thing that I want to point out is that you have to recognize when it's time to swim upstream and get prepared. All right. This is the piece where so many of us, and I'm saying us because I know that I've done it, where you've kind of dilly dalled. I'm missing that word, but kind of slacked in responding to when you first get that tweak of, it may be time to move on. It's time for me to consider a new project, whatever. Okay. That gut response, that gut feeling, do not ignore your gut. I'm just going to say that we all know what it is for us. Whatever that little twinge is, do not ignore it. Listen to yourself. Okay. First, that's a freebie. Now, here's the next thing is when you recognize that there is the potential for some things to happen or that you need to move forward, then you've got to do your homework, right? You don't just jump into the pool and then say, I'm going to do, 100 laps around this pool unprepared. If you have not been practicing, I'm not a swimmer, so don't ask me about this. This is a bad analogy for me. But you're not going to be able to go the distance if you haven't been practicing. Okay? So you have to make sure that you've laid the groundwork for this next growth opportunity, for this next move. What does that mean? It means asking questions, listening in on webinars or seminars or workshops if that's appropriate. Okay. Scheduling some conversations. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But you have to lay the groundwork. You don't just jump in cold. All right. Figure out, at least try to focus in on what it is you think you want to do next, where you think you're headed. So that way you have something of a target to move from. If you don't know where you're going, you're just wandering in the wilderness. Okay. So I'm not saying that that has to be the ultimate endpoint, but you do have to start by looking somewhere specifically. All right. When you focus, it gives you something to work towards. And then if you decide to pivot, guess what? That's fine. That's your prerogative. But at least you're pivoting from something as opposed to just wandering around, not really sure, and probably wasting your network's time in the process. That is not what we want to do. So that's why it's important that you first recognize, when it's time to start swimming upstream and start preparing. Start preparing your list of questions, start preparing your list of people you might want to reach out to, the folks that you need to know that you don't know, all those great things, all those great strategies I've taught and spoken on before. Okay, that's the first point. Now, here's the next thing is when you're doing this, you want to make sure to broaden your perspective, to broaden where you're looking, take the blinders off, and look both at the smaller fish and the bigger fish right below and above you. You want to utilize your ecosystem, You want to utilize your full network, okay? And because they all matter. Anyone who tells you that that's not true, they're just I mean, they're lying, first of all. And I know that's a strong term, but it is true because you cannot take anyone for granted when you're moving upstream. It is a huge, huge mistake. When people start ignoring the quote little people or the people at their level and only looking to like, oh, who's this next person? Maybe they can get me there. That's a mistake. Here's the reason why. You do not know who is in the network, who is in the circle of all those other people. And when you put those blinders on, when you only focus on one level, you are doing yourself a disservice and you are missing out on some fantastic opportunities, new relationships, new connections that you have already maybe at a deeper level because you're not willing to consider the fact that the help that you need may come from someone who is not at your level or is not above you. All the great things ahead of you don't come just from the people ahead of you. They can come from those who are slightly behind or those who are on level with you. Okay? That's why I say the small fish, the big fish, all fish. I know I'm going to wear out this analogy. So do not make that mistake. That's the point I want to make. Do not make the mistake of underestimating the people in your network. That is a huge, huge problem that people do all the time. I know when I was working for the university system, and I used to get the strangest looks because when I would be walking to the Capitol with my boss, who was the head of a university system, and some other people who would be considered, very important people and all of that, I would stop all the time and talk to the DPS officers. I'd greet them, ask them how their kids were doing. They'd ask me how my kids were doing. And people were like, stop. And then I would stop and I would speak with the cleaning staff, the janitorial staff. And a couple of times, I still remember to this day the look on one of the ladies' faces when I stopped to speak to her when I was with my boss. And she just kind of got this look like, no, it's okay. You don't have to acknowledge me. And I'm like, absolutely. Why would I not acknowledge her when I'm with him? But knowing that if I got locked out of my office when I was inside the building and they were the ones who helped me get back in, no, that's not how you treat people. And here's the thing, people remember that. That's how you get little tidbits of information. When I approach because I'd speak to people when I was with others, when I'm by myself, then I might get a little bit of extra information. I'm like, hey, Miss Patricia, you might want to be careful, stay off of this side of the building because there's a huge crowd that's coming through later on. Okay? I didn't ask for that bit of information, but it's helpful. It helped me, organize my day, what I was going to be doing. I'm like, hey, thanks for that tip. Okay. So that seems like a very minor thing, but those are the little things that add up over time and where you want to make sure that you're not, ignoring people. This weekend, I had the great pleasure of speaking as a panelist at a mentoring event that the Austin Young Women's Alliance was hosting here in town. It was fabulous and had a great time. And I learned while I was there, this is like for a whole other series, but I learned while I was there that the young woman who had reached out to me was not the person who first heard of me. And so she mentioned this other young lady she's like, no, I got her name from this person. I'm like, oh, cool. So I was like giving that credit, giving that credit to that young lady. And that young lady later got up and said, she goes, well, if I have to be honest, I'm not the one. Like her name was given to me by yet another person. And it turns out that third young lady is a young lady who heard me speak at an event last year. Okay, so a whole year ago, heard me speak, had actually reached out to me. We had had a conversation and then kind of, followed on LinkedIn or whatever. I had no idea she was in this organization. I had no idea she had given my name, but she had. Okay? All because I took out some time and shared, and she passed it on. These are the things you don't know. And as a result of getting this speaking engagement, there's the potential to connect with even more people and for additional opportunities up the road. Okay? Do not take people for granted. It is a mistake. Okay? The other piece you learn from that is that when you're like in this mentoring program, so I'm just going to use this as an example, is that some people may think that the only people to focus on is the mentor, right? Who's the person who is going to give you this great advice or information or whatever. No. You also need to consider your fellow mentees, the people who are around you, right? And those who may be coming up behind you. Because at some point in time, they either may become a mentor or a mentee to you or you to them, and you just never know what's going to happen. Same difference in this is just what it's all about when you're building out your professional relationships, is you don't know who's going to feed into your pipeline for your next growth opportunity. It's just as simple as that. So why would you cut off people who could feed what you're trying to accomplish? Now, let's be mindful. I'm not saying give time and credence to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm always about being strategic about it, always being very mindful. So there's a balance there, right? Don't put your blinders on, but also don't lay out a doormat and welcome any and everybody in, right? You have to remember what I said to begin with. You want to be prepared and have done your homework so that you're focused on where you're headed next and you have some idea about that. That will narrow your scope naturally some and then help you to then be to explore within those boundaries that you've set. Okay. So I want to be really clear about that. All right. Here's the third thing that I want to say for today. You do not, while you are figuring out where you're going, how you're trying to get upstream from, the pond to the lake to the river to the ocean, is you don't want to cut yourself off from the potential opportunities because you're afraid of the big fish or you're afraid of being in the ocean. Okay. Now, fear is a healthy thing. So I do not buy into that fearlessness mentality. I think I am of the mentality of it's okay to be scared and do it scared. You're scared, that's fine. Go do the thing scared. Okay. That said, make sure that you check your mindset as you're doing this growth piece, because a lot of times it's going to come back and it's going to be like, oh my God, I can't do this, or I can't reach out to that person, or I can't go to that place. Here's the reality. If you are trying to build $1 million business, you are not going to learn how to build $1 million business from the person who is sitting next to you in your cube, unless they have some side business that you don't know about, right? That's not where you're going to learn that. You have to be willing to step out and put yourself in spaces and with people who make you uncomfortable. I'm saying that make you uncomfortable because you're not there at their level yet, but you want to be there, right? That's the key here. This is where you want to achieve to. And so you have to be willing to step into that space in your discomfort, feeling really out of place, feeling like you're the small fish in a big pond, right? And be willing to be there, because guess what? You can grow there. Okay. There's nothing worse than getting to some space and getting to a level and then deciding, well, I'm too scared to do this thing, so I'm just going to stay where I am. So you settle. And I don't recommend that. I don't recommend it. It's not healthy long term because you will become resentful, you'll get tired, you burn out because you won't challenge yourself. Okay. So there are things that happen all along the way. We could talk about all those types of things. However, the bottom line is if you want to swim in the ocean, you got to do some things to make it so that you can get to the ocean. All right. Which means probably being uncomfortable, challenging yourself, um, engaging with people that you didn't think that you could engage with. Right. But that's a part of the growth opportunity. That is how you maximize your relationships so that you can get to that point. All right. Be willing to reach out there. Be willing to connect. You will not believe most of the time how much easier it is that those people that you are, quote, afraid to connect with are much more human than you think. They remember where they've been, most of them, and are willing to talk to people who are genuinely looking to get to the next level and are willing to do the work to make it happen. Okay? That's it. That's what I have for you today. So remember, as you're maximizing your network while swimming upstream, remember you have to recognize when it's time to move and be prepared. Put the feelers out, ask the questions, do your research, and then remember to broaden your perspective. Do not ignore the little people because the little people have big connections sometimes. All right, so be mindful of that. And then lastly, don't be afraid of the big fish or the big water. All right, you got to be willing to step out there to do the thing so that you can grow to that next level. All right, that's what I have for you today. Thank you so, so much. Here are a couple of reminders. Tomorrow, we are hosting our networking masterclass that we've been hosting every 2 or 3 months here. It is the Building Profitable Professional Relationships That Last. And it will be at 11:30 a.m. Central Time. You do need to register, so go to the website, patriciavhayes.com, or check for a link in the bio, whichever social media platform you're on, and you can get registered there. Excuse me. Get registered there. It's not too late. I haven't closed off the registration. That's going to happen in a few hours here. So you want to get your registration in so that you can get the Zoom link, and or if for some reason you are not able to actually attend live, you can have access to the recording for 5 days after the class. Okay, that's how I work. So you can get access to that. We are also going to be starting the newest networking challenge for October 1st. It's a 30-day networking challenge that we'll be starting. And so I'll be looking forward to folks if you're interested in getting registered for that. It is the one where I provide support via educational platform. And so you'll have access to the videos and to, just some ongoing support to help you meet your networking goals for this quarter. Okay. And as you prepare for next year. So if you have questions about that, let me know. I am absolutely happy to have a quick chat or send you the information for it. Okay. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone. And I will talk with you later. Bye-bye.